Right, let me move on now to language development. And again, I'm being selective here with some of the data that I'm showing you, and the full data is, of course, in the full report. What we looked at, first of all, when we went in, and we went to the schools, obviously, several times, but basically, in terms of gathering language data, there were two times. So we went in May 2014, and then again May 2015 to gather the language data. So we set them an open-ended task, writing task, which we asked them to do on an individual basis under more or less test conditions. What we were looking for there was formal development, if you like, progression in formal features of language, and we picked these items. We also looked at communicative features, such as expressing feelings, likes and dislikes, and so on. And from the interviews, we thought, well, rather than giving them sort of language tests for oral tests, let's actually analyze the language that's produced in the interviews when we were asking them to talk about things that were relevant to them. So you got there the topics of areas that were covered in the interviews, and they lasted 30 minutes long, and of course they did in time 1, and then a year later, time 2. We looked to see what's the change. Again, what we were looking for here was formal features, similar formal features, similar communicative features as with the written tasks, but we're also looking at interactional features, how much they depended on interpreters during the interviews, how much they didn't understand, how many questions they didn't understand and had to be repeated and so on. So these were interactional features that we looked at. Was there going to be any change from time 1 to time 2? Okay, main findings, again, these are very selective. In terms of the writing, there was limited, on the whole, limited progress, not surprising, in the writing development, the writing acquisition of, in English, of those children over that period. So what we're talking about here is time 2, right? Time 2, they will have been in the school then for almost 2 years, two academic years. There was improvement, marked improvement. These are statistically the strongest improvements, obviously, in increase of word count. So they wrote more, so there was more confidence of wanting to express themselves in writing. There were fewer L1 words used in the texts. There was an improvement in the use of the present tense and the use of conjecture, but little else in terms of formal improvement. In terms of speaking, these were the main areas of improvement. Comprehension was markedly improved. Length of response, again, they felt more confident and spoke for longer. Range and accuracy of present and past tense. That was an interesting finding, I thought, that, that in speaking they were using the past tense accurately, but in writing it wasn't being produced. Expressions of likes and dislikes, reduction in need for interpreter intervention. Look at an example here of Annika. It's not her real name. All right, she's been there for 8 months, and this was her first, round 1 task. As you can see there, I've highlighted there are 9 instances where she's had to switch into the L1 Lithuanian to help her express herself, and there are 2 instances there where she didn't understand the prompt that we gave her. The following year, same kid, you'll see a marked improvement. Just a quick glance at that will show that there's a marked improvement. It's longer. There are no L1 uses. She's feeling, she's more confident. There are no misunderstandings and so on. But you can still see that she's not using the range of tenses. For instance, she's using the present tense form to express the perfect. If you look at the third sentence, before I live in Lithuania, where you can see, when I come in England, I feel, instead of when I came, I felt. She's still, she's not using the perfect tense there in writing. In terms of speaking, this is for Annika again. If you compare column 1, which is time 1, with column 2, you can see the differences there. So in time 1, she spoke, there were 30 instances where she had to turn to the interpreter before giving her answer, and in time 2, that didn't happen at all. And so on. Interpreter replies on behalf of the pupil, time 1, 25 times, but only 3 times in time 2, the year following. If you look at the bottom here, the longest terms, here we counted up the number of words and the 3 longest replies that she gave to the questions. And you can see there's a jump there from 28 was the longest to 137. So greater confidence and willingness to speak. Okay, well, were there any connections there between progression in language and social issues? So we found, again, perhaps surprisingly, that there wasn't a significant effect, a relationship between what they told us, when, this is self-report, that, speaking mainly in the L1 at home or with peers, there wasn't a connection between that and progression in the scores in speaking and writing for us, other than in writing, the ones who said that they only spoke in the L1 at home, their spelling accuracy wasn't as good as the others. That was the only effect they seemed to have. Mixed friendship groups, on the other hand, had a more positive effect on EAL speaking and writing than monolingual-based groups. And then that's just, I've added there, the survey found for the Key Stage 4. Interesting, they said that 30% of all the Key Stage 4 kids at the school said they spoke L1 mainly with close friends, and 52% said that they mainly spoke L1 out of school. Students reported encountering problems. The main area is that one of the interesting things was they weren't aware of the fact that their written performance in English was weak and lacking. When you ask them, which bits of English do you find difficult, they weren't aware that writing was actually, that their performance was up to scratch. They did refer to listening, and they said that listening was the most problematic, and they referred to speed of delivery of the teachers and also of their peers, the English-speaking peers, as problems, posing problems for them, as well as accents, native speaker accents. They indicated in the first few months following a mission that they mainly continued to think in their home language in lessons and elsewhere. After a year, however, they were saying that I'm now thinking in English, as well as sometimes thinking in the L1. It's not just thinking in the L1, which is what they said in year 1. And this seemed to correspond also to a similar shift over from year 1 to year 2, in at least saying that they felt more at home in the community and the school, more part of them. And one kid in particular gave an example that being able to go into a shop and ask for things in English himself without having to turn to his friends to do it on his behalf made him feel more at home in the community in which he lived.